Tragic mistake is what he has called it. After Israeli strikes killed 45 Palestinians in a refugee camp, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing international criticism, with even Israel's closest allies expressing outrage at the death of the displaced civilians.
ברפיח כבר פינינו כמיליון תושבים בלתי מעורבים. ולמרות המאמץ העליון שלנו שלא לפגוע בבלתי מעורבים, קרתה לצערנו אמש תקלה טרגית. אנחנו חוקרים את המקרה, אנחנו נסיק את המסקנות, כי זו המדיניות שלנו.
Now, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, the strike pushed the overall Palestinian death toll in the war above 36,000, including civilians as well as those who are fighting in the war. As per the Israeli military, its air force targeted a Hamas compound in Rafah using what it calls precise ammunition and on the basis of precise intelligence. The strike eliminated Hamas's chief of staff for West Bank and another senior official responsible for the deadly attacks on Israelis in the past. The strikes, remember, came after Hamas fired a barrage of missiles at Tel Aviv. Now, even as Israel faces scrutiny in the top courts of the world, it keeps reiterating that it adheres to international law. But even as Israel called it a mistake, its offensive in Rafah still continues as we speak, leading the world to rethink if there's any space that is safe for the refugees. Rafah, the southernmost city of Gaza on the border with Egypt, has been designated as an area for the displaced. But clearly, it's not. Hundreds of thousands are packed into tent camps in and around the city. Children, women, elderly, living in small tents, struggling for humanitarian aid. The airstrikes burnt the tents, and as per reports, people's bodies are burnt and they're melting. The UN Security Council is set to convene an emergency meeting today. But the question is Israel willing to listen? And is Hamas willing to stop the barrage of missiles? Let me get in my guests on the show tonight. I'm joined by Dr. Eyal Pinko. He's a former intelligence officer and a cyber and national security expert. I'm also joined by Palestinian journalist Daoud Kuttab. Good evening and welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Kuttab, first. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that this was a tragic mistake. Are the Palestinian people and the government in Palestine buying that statement?
Of course not. The Israelis have always covered themselves up by saying mistakes, by they wasn't planning to do this, or blaming it on, always blaming the victims or claiming it to be a mistake. This is a genocidal war that is cutting off food and water from people, that is killing innocent civilians, that is even refusing to accept the demands of the International Court of the American allies. This is a war of revenge. Israel has been in war of revenge for the last 7 months and has no plan to end this war, killing innocent civilians. You said some of them are civilians. The majority of those killed are civilians. It's not some of the 36,000. Almost 15,000 children are among those. There is almost 70% between women and children. So we have a situation where there is a revenge war going on, and it's not against Hamas, it's against the Palestinian people. Also on the West Bank, we have 500 Palestinians killed since October 7th, 14 Palestinians in jail, held by Israel, under their responsibility, have died in jail.
Can I also ask you, Mr. Kuttab, at this point, that absolutely that Israeli strikes were condemnable, they were uncalled for, but then what explains the previous barrage of missiles that the Hamas had targeted at Tel Aviv?
Oh, they have, what choice do people under attack have? That's the self-defense. Palestinians are oppressed. The occupier doesn't have a right to self-defense. It's the occupied who have a legal right for self-defense. The barrage of missiles did not cause a single death or injury in Israel. But Israelis make a big deal about this because they don't want to have a ceasefire. Have a ceasefire and no barrage of missiles will come, and Israel has to get out of the West Bank and Gaza.
Okay. Dr. Pinko, do you want to respond to Mr. Kuttab? The fact that there was no casualty when that barrage of missiles came in at Tel Aviv and Israel is just making a big deal out of it. That strike in Rafah, in fact, has killed innocent people, displaced people who were there thinking that they are at a safe place in what is designated as a safe place for the displaced?
Yes, I will be happy to say the things and the truth as it is. Hamas ISIS conducted an attack against Israel on October 7. The Hamas terrorists killed almost 2,000 Israelis, butchered them, not only killed them. And the prisoners that Israel is holding, they are not innocent Palestinians, they are Hamas terrorists, which they should be in prison. This is one. Secondly, there are many proofs, videos and footages which were presented to the world, showing that Hamas is using all the Palestinian infrastructure in the Gaza Strip. I want to mention that the journalist that is here on the call, saying that there is an occupation. The Gaza Strip is not occupied. The Gaza Strip, as the parts of Judah and Samaria, is under those two territories is under Palestinian Authority. This is their own place. This is not Israeli place, but they're claiming again that this is occupation. Why it's occupation? Because they see that Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, and all the other cities should be Palestinians and not Israeli. This is what is behind occupation. So when Hamas is using schools, hospitals, kindergarten as the shelter, they put inside all their ammunition, we just covered 2 days ago that UNRWA, the UN organization, is putting below the ground, below hospitals, below UNRWA facilities, they are putting ammunitions, weapons, etc., etc. So, once they are firing rockets from these places, they are firing rockets from kindergarten, they are firing rockets from hospitals and from buildings, Israel is striking back over there in a very precise way. What happened in this, the last case, that also was published and pictures were published, that below the infrastructure of this building, there was a huge ammunition storage, which we didn't know about it. Israel didn't know about it. And once the Israeli bomb was attacking this place, which the rockets were fired from, and you said it very nicely, the storage became, the explosive came out of this storage. So this is something that is because there is no secure place in the Gaza Strip, because below the secure places, the Palestinians are putting their ammunition. Once again, this is not occupation. This is a territory that was and still is under Hamas
Dr. Pinko, then, help me also
doing.
understand what happens when Israel strikes again and again and the Rafah route is not open. Humanitarian aid is struck. It is stuck and it is not able to reach those who desperately need it.
Yes, this is not true, by the way, because humanitarian aid are being supplied to the Gaza people from the sea and from the land from Israel. And this is being taken and controlled by Hamas that leave it for their hands. And you can see the pictures from that. This is very interesting, by the way, to see that from Egypt, they're not getting any type of help, and nobody say anything about that. So, according to the law of war, Israel don't need to give them any supply. This is a war. This is terror organization that killing and butchering Israelis, firing rockets towards Israeli cities even this week. And Israel give them, this is insane, Israel give them water and energy and medical supplies and food. They're giving that by Israelis. They're killing Israelis and Israel give them back all the supplies. This is insane. And I don't remember, by the way, any case.
Let me get in Mr. Kuttab on this. Mr. Kuttab, do you want to respond to this? Do you want to help us understand what the situation is in Rafah in these refugee camps?
I'm surprised. I'm surprised at India. I'm surprised at your guest. This is trying to cover up a genocide by claiming that this Israel is attacking. They're attacking civilians. They are occupying areas and they control the whole area. They occupied it, they broke it, they're responsible for it. The law of war says occupiers must take care of people under their occupation. The Israelis have always occupied Gaza and the West Bank since 1967. They've not allowed people to return from 1948. They put Gaza under siege for 16 years. This is a country that is committing war crimes, and the international court has said that. Even the Americans have said that. The French complained yesterday about what happened. This is a genocidal war, and in this country of Israel is committing acts of war, and that's what we have to explain them. We should not try to cover or justify these acts of war. I can talk for a long time, but I think I'm going to end here because I'm not involved. I'm interested in a debate with a warmonger who is defending war crimes. I'm really sorry, but I cannot continue with a person like this who's just defending war crimes. The situation is very clear. There is occupation, it has to end. Israel must accept international law, must apply international the law of war, and must exit immediately. They cannot defeat Hamas. They cannot defeat the PLO. They cannot deny the 5.5 million Palestinians or more
Okay,
the right
Mr.
of
Kuttab,
self-determination.
point taken. There are no winners in a war. There are both sides to this. The Israelis have their own version. The Palestinians have their own situation to deal with. But Dr.
No.
Pinko, let me
Yes.
I'm not in.
let me
This is
understand
trying to
from you,
make
Dr. Pinko. You know, the
equality. I'm not
ICJ has
interested
given
in a
its
debate.
ruling to
I'm not
halt
interested
Israel.
in a debate. I'm not interested in debate because this is a war crime that
Okay,
must be
we're not
denounced.
debating here, Mr.
You
Kuttab.
cannot
We're just trying
equate
to
the war crime.
understand both sides of this war. We're trying to understand both sides of this war, Mr. Kuttab. Nobody is debating. But Dr. Pinko, you know, the ICJ has recently ruled that Israel needs to halt its offensive in Rafah. Time and again, various global organizations have urged Israel to stop the war. Why aren't you? Why aren't you stopping the war when it's not just the Palestinians who are suffering, it's Israelis as well who are suffering on ground in this war?
Yeah. First, we need to read the history books. And so according to the history books, while the Oslo peace agreement the Gaza Strip was handed in 2007 to the Palestinian Authority, which after that Hamas took control. So it's not an Israeli territory. This is one. Secondly, we are suffering in the last 17 years from numerous terror attacks. Many Israeli killed. It's not only in the last year. For 17 years, Israel is under terror attacks from Hamas. And it's about time that Hamas will be eliminated and not be able to rule the Gaza Strip. It should be back to the PLO as it was before. This is the main issue here. And we need to remember that more than 100
So you're
people
saying,
still
Dr.
are
Pinko,
being
that Israel
hostages
will
by
not
Hamas.
follow any international advice, any global law?
First, the Hague Court of Law is not a relevant place. It's it's being headed by a very far left a guy, which is he's a pro-Palestinian. It's anti-Israeli for many years. This is well known. So everything is being towards his direction. Secondly, what was the verdict over there is that Israel should be avoided of going into Rafah while keeping lives over there and maintaining the health. So Israel is doing that, while Hamas they are not, they are using men and children and women. They are using them as a human shield. So Israel still is not playing against the Hague Court of Law. We are playing with the rules. And I think that Israel has, as you said, all the right to defend itself from these terror attacks that are coming from the Gaza Strip and from Hamas.
Okay, let me then ask you, Dr. Pinko, quickly about the peace negotiations that are about to begin. We're being told that there is no fixed date for it yet, but it involves Egypt, Qatar, and America. Are you willing to sit there and talk and sort this out and end the war?
Israel in the last 3 months is trying to sit with Hamas in Qatar and in Egypt and to go to a peace agreement. It's not a peace really, it's just a ceasefire. There is no peace for the last 17 years. Okay, it's only in between ceasefires. Israel tried, the head of the Mossad, the Internal Security Service, and some other politicians went to Qatar. They went to Egypt to try to negotiate. American negotiators came and tried to mitigate within. Hamas didn't want to go into any kind of peace agreement. They wanted to get Jerusalem as part of this agreement. They want many other not relevant issues in order to go to peace agreement. Israel stopped its military maneuvers for more than 2 months in order to sit down to have a treaty, a ceasefire. Hamas didn't want it. Hamas didn't want it. It did moves for that were not peaceful. So I think there is no any choice for that. If there will be any reasonable
Mr.
and
Kuttab, you
real,
want to respond to Dr. Pinko that Hamas did not want a peace treaty there, a ceasefire, and that Israel has been willing to do that, but time and again
Absolutely.
Hamas has shot it down. And do you see any move forward? Mr. Kuttab.
Is it to me, the question?
Yes, Mr. Kuttab.
I can't hear anything.
Mr. Kuttab, are you able to hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Yes,
What
Mr.
was the
Kuttab, would you
question?
like to respond to Dr. Pinko? He says that Israel has offered ceasefire and a peace treaty earlier, but Hamas is the one who's been, shooting it down, rejecting it, and is not willing to come to the table and be on the same page.
Ask the Americans, ask the chief of the CIA. The Americans were in Qatar. They sent to the Israelis an agreement that Hamas agreed, and the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected it. The Palestinians want the end of the war. The Israelis don't want to end the war. They want to keep killing Palestinians. The offer is on the table to end the war and get all the hostages released and all the Palestinian prisoners released. The Israelis don't want to, they just want to keep attacking Palestinians. They're not going to defeat Hamas because Hamas is not just a military. It's an idea, an ideology. You don't defeat ideologies. You want peace, sit down with the Palestinian leadership, and even Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't want to talk to the PLO, doesn't want to talk to Mahmoud Abbas, who's offering to make a peace treaty in Gaza and the West Bank and ending the occupation. But the Israelis want a piece of our land, not peace treaty. They don't want to give us peace. They just want to control our lives, and they already control the West Bank, even though there's no Hamas there. 500 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank since October 7th, 14 in prisons. So the Israelis are not honest about wanting peace. They just want to control and take revenge for what happened to them.
Okay. I'll have to leave it there. Dr. Pinko and Daoud Kuttab, thank you very much to both of you gentlemen. Nobody likes war, and we hope that this war ends soon and the suffering of the people who have to go through all of this every day of their lives ends soon. Thank you very much to both of you gentlemen for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much.